Welcome to Thinking Unchained, the podcast that unchains your thinking. This is the space where ideas stretch, breathe, and break free from the ordinary. I am your host, Byron. If you would like to read today's essay or download a PDF version, you will find it on my website, thinkingunchained.com. I am grateful you have decided to join me. The title of today's essay is Communicating Amidst the Rumble. Human language, by which I mean not the idiom, but the very act of exchanging meaning, has grown more intricate with time. Our vocabularies have expanded, our metaphors multiplied, our channels of expression diversified, and yet our ability to truly convey what we mean has diminished, deteriorated. We speak with greater sophistication, but not with greater clarity. We possess more words, but fewer shared understandings. Our messages travel faster, but land with less precision. In a world overflowing with signals, we have become impoverished in interpretation. The problem is not that we lack language, but that language has become a maze, one in which nuance is lost, intentions are misread, and meaning dissolves into obscurity before it reaches its destination. We either send or receive a partial message, the wrong message, or even the opposite of what we intended. Somewhere between intention and expression, something essential fractures, meaning leaks, tone warps, context evaporates. It is as if every message must cross a great distance, one filled with a fog of assumptions, fears, histories, and private interpretations. By the time it reaches the other side, it is no longer the original concept, but its distorted echo. We imagine communication as a clean transfer, like passing an object from one hand to another, but in truth, it is more like releasing a fragile paper boat into a turbulent river. We hope it arrives intact, but we know the current has its own intentions. And so we live in a world where clarity is rare, misinterpretation is common, and understanding is a small miracle. If we look at a communication through the transactional model of communication, seeing it not as a simple delivery of meaning, but as a continuous exchange, a back and forth flow, then the flaw becomes unmistakable. The transaction itself is compromise. Every communicative act is meant to be a mutual shaping of understanding, minds, contexts, histories, comprehensions, meeting in a shared space of meaning, but that shared space is never clean. It is crowded with interference. The major culprit being noise. Not just auditory noise, but the full spectrum of human interference. Noise is no longer an occasional disruption. It is the default continual condition. Meaning must fight its way through it, zigzag right and left to avoid collisions along the way. The transaction has become a negotiation with chaos. A message is encoded, but the encoding is imperfect. It is sent, but the channel is turbulent. It is received, but the receiver is already full of competing signals. And then it is decoded through a prism that the sender can never fully anticipate. By the time the message completes its journey, it traveled between intention and thunderous interference. The system is not broken, it is simply full of roar. When a message is distorted in a casual conversation, the cost is small. But when distortion enters the bloodstream of society, politics, medicine, commerce, identity, the stakes change. We elect leaders based on slogans that were already misheard before they left the candidate's mouth. We take medications based on explanations filtered through fear, hope, marketing, and half-remembered advice. We buy products because an ad whispered something we thought we understood. We make life-altering decisions based on fragments of fragments. The danger is not that humans miscommunicate. The danger is that we build systems that pretend humans communicate clearly. A democracy assumes an informed voter. Healthcare assumes an informed patient. Markets assume an informed consumer. But the informed person is often navigating with a map drawn in a noisy environment. Every successful moment of understanding is not a given. It is a small, rare, fragile triumph. These are not occasional obstacles, they are the conditions under which all communication occurs. Every message must pass through these layers of interference, and each layer alters it, subtly or dramatically, before it reaches the other side. Physical noise, those external environmental intrusions like background chatter, loud music, passing sirens, or the relentless thrum of construction, seems at first glance like the simplest form of interference. It is the most literal, the most tangible. Before meaning encounters the complexities of interpretation, it must survive the world itself. A message must compete with the environment, the clatter of dishes in a cafe, the hum of machines, the unpredictable interruptions of daily life. These sounds do more than obscure words, they fracture attention. They pull the listener's mind away from the fragile thread of meaning, forcing the message to fight for space in a world that is already shouting over us. Psychological noise, those internal distractions such as preoccupied thoughts, stress, anxieties, assumptions, or prejudices, may be invisible, but it is often the most powerful force distorting communication. It does not shout like construction or hum as machinery, it screams from within. It prevents us from fully entering the moment of communication. It fractures attention. It bends interpretation before a single word is even heard. When the mind is crowded, the message has no room to land. When the heart is guarded, the meaning cannot pass through. Psychological noise reminds us that communication is an encounter between inner worlds, worlds filled with their own storms, histories, and unspoken narratives. Even in silence, we are not quiet. Interference is not only outside us, but also within us. Semantic noise, misunderstandings arising from language barriers, jargon, or different interpretations of words and phrases, seems, at first, like a technical problem, a mismatch of vocabulary, a gap in shared terminology. Words carry histories, emotions, religious undertones, cultural shadows, personal associations, and age, gender, or socioeconomic perceptions. Every term arrives with a past the speaker cannot fully control and the listener cannot fully escape. Physiological noise, physical conditions such as hearing impairments, pain, hunger, fatigue, illness, or any limitation of the body may seem like the most straightforward form of interference in which understanding is not just a mental act, but a bodily one as well. When the body is strained, the message falters. Fatigue dulls attention. Illness narrows perception. Pain pulls awareness inward. Impairments reshape how sound, sight, or sensations are perceived. Even the most carefully crafted message must pass through the body's thresholds. If those thresholds are compromised, meaning arrives distorted, incomplete, or not at all. Therefore, the body becomes the first interpreter and sometimes the first barrier. So, at the very moment language has become more sophisticated, our expressive capacity has expanded, but so has the interference that distorts it. We have more tools for communication than ever, yet fewer conditions that allow communication to succeed. Physical noise has multiplied in a world of engines, alerts, and constant motion. Psychological noise has intensified as modern life saturates us with stress, distraction, and inner turbulence. Semantic noise has grown as our vocabularies diversify faster than our shared meanings can keep up. Physiological noise is amplified by exhaustion, overstimulation, and the relentless pace of contemporary life. A language has evolved, but the world has conspired to drown it out. We no longer live in a world where noise is an occasional interruption. We live in a world where noise is the atmosphere. We are rarely, if ever, in a state where we can receive an unadulterated message. The moment a message is sent, it is already competing with the vibration of a phone, the glow of a screen, the mental residue of unfinished tasks, the emotional weight of constant comparison, the cognitive fatigue of perpetual stimulation. Even silence is no longer silent. It is filled with anticipation of the next alert, the next demand, the next digital knock on the door. In such a world, all messages are now full of noise, not because the sender is careless, nor because the receiver is inattentive, but because the world itself has become a vast, unceasing generator of interference. We have built a civilization capable of speaking across continents, yet incapable of hearing across a table. Humanity has moved from a world of simple messages exchanges where meaning traveled through relatively quiet channels to a world in which no message can ever arrive without noise attached to it. In earlier eras, communication was constrained, but the environment around it was comparatively still. Fewer distractions, fewer competing signals, fewer layers of interpretation. A message, however imperfect, had a clearer path from one mind to another. Our society has become rushed, so rushed that even our ways of communicating have been reshaped by urgency. We have begun to treat attention as a scarce resource, something to be captured quickly and held only briefly. As a result, we now demand messages that fit into shrinking windows of time. People want meaning delivered in 60 seconds. They want complex concepts distilled into 5-minute videos. They want depth without duration, nuance without patience, understanding without effort. This cultural compression complicates communication. It forces ideas to be flattened, stripped of context, reduced to fragments that can survive the pace of modern life. But when ideas are compressed, meaning is lost, and noise fills the space where depth used to be. We are not just communicating faster, we are communicating thinner. The world's acceleration has trained us to prefer the digestible over the meaningful, the quick over the careful, the immediate over the reflective. And in doing so, we have created yet another layer of noise, one born not from the environment nor the mind, but from the tempo of the culture itself, an impatient society. So impatient that we no longer receive messages, we skim them, interrupt them, pre interpret them. We read through an email with a noisy mind, and a third of the way in, we have already formulated a response. But that response is flawed because the reading was incomplete. The message was never fully heard. Impatience pushes us to react before we understand. It convinces us that speed is a virtue when in truth it is a distortion. In this state, communication becomes a race rather than a meeting. We treat messages as obstacles to clear rather than invitations to understand. We listen only long enough to confirm our assumptions, not long enough to challenge them. And so the message we respond to is not the message that was sent. It is the fragment we managed to grasp before our attention sprinted ahead. Impatience fractures communication in a way no machine ever could. It turns every exchange into a partial exchange. It ensures that even when the words are clear, the understanding is not. In a world already saturated with noise, impatience becomes the noise we create. And what makes it dangerous is precisely that we fail to recognize it as noise at all. A question arises. Can humanity go back to communicating effectively without noise? Not by returning to some imagined past, and not by stripping the world of its complexity. The world will not grow quieter. The machinery will not slow. The notifications will not politely recede. The noise is here to stay. But clarity does not depend on the absence of noise. It depends on our awareness of it. We can communicate more effectively only if we learn to see the noise as it happens, if we become conscious of the distortions that accompany every message. To communicate clearly, we must notice when our minds are preoccupied, recognize when our assumptions are speaking louder than the words we hear, acknowledge when language itself is slipping beneath us, sense when the body is too tired to receive meaning, and understand when the environment is drowning out the signal. Only then can we reduce noise with intention, clearing a small space within ourselves and between ourselves, where meaning can breathe again, not in a quieter world, but in a more attentive one. In the end, the question is not whether we can escape noise, but whether we can learn to recognize it as the ever present companion of every message we send or receive. The modern world will not quiet itself for us. Its machinery, its pace, its pressures, and its endless signals are now woven into the fabric of daily life. Keep in mind, clarity depends on awareness, not on quietude. If we can learn to notice the noise within and around us, to slow our reactions, to listen with deliberateness rather than impatience, then communication becomes possible again. Not perfect, not pure, but honest. In a world saturated with interference, understanding becomes an act of mindfulness, and every moment of true connection becomes a triumph against the rumble. Thank you.